Good afternoon, everyone. So I know we said we're gonna start at 2, but I'm gonna wait 1 or 2 more minutes just to give people some time to come as I see they're still joining. So please bear with me for 2 minutes and then we'll get started, okay? Okay, we're gonna get started. So good afternoon, everyone, again. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you are doing well and staying safe and healthy. And I know these are uncertain times and stressful times, and I appreciate that you took the time to come to listen to us. I am Dr. Natasha Lugo Escobar, and I work at the Office of Intramural Training Education, or OITE, directing a summer internship program called High Step 2.0. And I also work with many of our post-bac population in different aspects as well. So today we are going to talk about what can you do now, right, like early in college, to increase your chances to get into medical and graduate school. Just a note that the purpose of this workshop is to provide you with a general overview. But each of your situations are going to be unique. So, what I encourage you is take the information, see where you are right now, where you want to go, and find the opportunities and resources to get there. I will go over some of the main components that apply to both medical school and grad school, but I recommend to talk to your college advisor or pre-professional offices or pre-med office or mentors to get specific information you need to better prepare for it. So this information might be more useful and to those who are at the earliest stages and have time to still do a lot of the things to get more opportunities and boost your resume in terms of the things you can do to build your credentials for medical school or grad school. So before we dive in, just on housekeeping items, all your mics are muted, but you should be able to hear me. If you don't hear me, you can send a message via the chat box, and one of my colleagues is behind the scenes, and she can help you out, but we recommend that it might be internet issues, so you might want to log off and log in back again and check your connection. To ask a question, please write it in the Q&A box. There's a lot of things that I want to cover, so I'll hope to get to your questions. I know there are going to be a lot of questions, and I will try to stop halfway through to answer a few, or depending on time, just doing it at the end. If I don't get to your questions, which might be the case because we have a lot of attendees, we can see the questions and I'll do my best maybe, to answer some, and we have your information and maybe we can compile those answers and send. If you look on the handout tab, you will find a copy of the presentation so that you can follow it. Okay, so what we will do today, as I said, is to provide you with a broad overview on the things that you can do now to prepare for your next step with a focus on medical school and grad school. We're going to go over the critical elements that will strengthen your application and give you some resources and tips for success. We will not go into detail into the application process for each of the um, schools, or navigate on how to help you choosing a school that best fits for you, or study strategies for the MCAT or GRE, or learning interviewing skills. These are other standalone workshops that you can see later on our website, and I have a bunch of links at the end to help you on that. So in that case, if you're at a later stage, let's say maybe you're a senior and you're getting ready to apply, I would encourage you to attend to the upcoming workshops on choosing and applying to medical school or grad school, because they're going to focus very in detail into the application process, from going over what factors to take into account when deciding on a school, going over each of the application components and tips for completing successfully the application and the timeline. There's also going to be other workshops focusing on personal and research statements for grad school, interviewing, and making transitions. You can find this information on our website under events, but I've also included for your convenience here the dates and the times. Okay, so before, right, deciding what is the right path for you, and in this case, is this like medical school or grad school, you might want to ask yourself some questions that reflect on your past and your current experiences, right? Reflecting, what are you passionate about? What makes you excited? What makes you happy when you wake up every day? Or, you know, maybe at least most of your days. And it can be at the academic, your personal or professional level. I mean, maybe you get super excited to go to that class that really gets your attention, or maybe you are happy when you work at a clinic or a hospital, interacting with patients and staff, learning new things, volunteering at a place where you know you can make a difference, or you enjoy doing challenging tasks, that things that make you think outside the box. You like to fix problems, right? So whatever it is, it's important because it will define how you see yourself in the future and the career path that you will follow. So reflecting on that, then you might want to ask yourself, why is it that you want to go to grad school or med school? Why is this important for you? Is this a career path that's going to fulfill your goals? Are you going to be happy doing this for the rest of your life? And it is important to ask why it's important for you, not your neighbors, not your friends, not your family. This is about you and the rest of your life dedicating to a career, right? So with this in mind, you want to think about what are some of the reasons on why you want to pursue medicine or science. So there are some good reasons, and I'm going to go over some. They're not an exhaustive list, but just like to give you an idea. So if you're thinking of going to grad school, right, you might enjoy being challenged intellectually. You might have an interest. You have an interest in scientific inquiry. You want to discover new knowledge, to be at the forefront of discoveries, get a deeper understanding of a specific, field of your interest. Work in a collaborative environment, so you enjoy working in teams. You enjoy solving problems, or you want to be a leader in the scientific field. And for medical school, thinking about you're interested in the life sciences, in helping people, you want to improve people's health, and that's, I think, is the most important aspect of why you want to pursue medicine. You're committed to a lifelong learning, advanced knowledge, want to solve problems, want to be a leader of the medical team. So you can see that there's some of like reasons that overlap with each of this path. But the goal of this list is to help you think about those things that you enjoy and that you can see yourself continue exploring and dedicating a career to. Both of these paths require many years of school and training. So you want to make sure that you're thinking thoroughly to make an informed decision, right? But don't matter what you want to do, preparation is key. And you want to be honest with yourself. There's nothing you can do about the past, right? But you can focus on the future, and you can change that. So asking yourself, and again, you're going to be asking, this is talking to yourself a lot. What are relevant experiences do I have? What are the necessary skills that I need for that next step? Which of these skills do I have? Which skills do I need to develop or improve? What are the things that worry you, right? What can you do now to be a successful applicant? And before we go into more details, I think it will help you also think, what are some of the desirable qualities that PhDs or grad students have? So here is a list, and I'm not going to go over, but some of the ones that come most to my mind is like, you like to be creative, problem solving, like we said. You want independence, and you need like good communication skills, time management skills, good interpersonal skills, attention to details, among others. And when you think about, medical school and what are some of the qualities that doctors have, you can see, being compassion, endurance, lifelong learning, like we mentioned, commitment, empathy, drive to solve problems. So looking at both of these lists can help you think about what are the skills that you have, and which one you might want to develop or improve. So in this way, you can have a better idea on how to prepare and what things you need to focus now. So just keep this list in mind as you look for experiences and opportunities to grow. Also, I think it's important, and I'm not going to go into details. This is going to be in details on the other workshops, more focused on choosing and applying for grad school and medical school. But you need to know what the time of the application process, how long does it take to start preparing for it, because you need to make a plan. So it's important to have in hand the timeline, right? So you understand the process and you have everything in that time. In this case, we're looking at the timeline for medical schools. This is like general, but for example, say you're thinking of applying for the cycle of 2021, you can see by when the start of the timeline that it might take, over a year, more than a year and a half to start preparing for the process. And this starts taking an MCAT but count that you have to study for the MCAT, and that can add like a couple of months additionally to the time that you need to complete the whole process. So take that into consideration when you start planning for this step. The same goes for grad school, right? Maybe, a year, a little bit more. So in this case, in grad school, it says, start August of the, to start searching for schools. I would say to start on your junior year, kind of like doing it more in a relaxed time and not in a rush, and searching information about schools that you're gonna be interested. So even though I don't go into details in this, I just wanted to give you an idea on how long the process takes. So you use your time wisely in college and prepare for it and start building your resume and the credential, so you can submit a strong application. Okay. So now we're going to go over what are some of the things that make your application competitive, and what can you do now to start getting building these experiences. So whichever path you choose, there are components that will make you a stronger candidate. And these are not in specific order, but obviously there's your grades, right? Your GPA, What relevant experiences do you have, whether they're research related, clinically related, or other jobs that you have had. You also want to demonstrate that you have developed important skills such as leadership and communication. And these will matter also because you have to write personal statements. So you need to show that you can write. And for interviews, you need to be able to communicate clearly, to have a coherent conversation, be able to talk about your interests, your sign, your goals. Right? Other important skills, and we'll go into details on this later, is being resilient, having emotional intelligence, critical thinking skill, working, being a good team player, managing your time and stress. And finally, letters of recommendations and also standardized tests that you need for admissions. But remember that your application is a combination of all of these components, and it will vary by school and program and who is on the admissions committee on how they evaluate this. So if we focus first on grades, you're not a number. Grades are not everything, but they do matter, right? Especially for grad school and medical school, and especially those high level challenging classes like science and math, right? So to give you an example, right, for MD, GPA for the students who have been accepted and matriculated, it's 3.664, right? That's like the science. If you look at the total, in average, they had a 3.77. If you look at MD PhD programs, it's a little bit higher than that, around 3.79 total, or science 3.76. If you look in grad school, right, so 3.5, 3.3, 3.5, or much higher than that. So that being said, not all GPAs are weighted equally. It depends on the difficulty and the level of the classes. There's also students who might have other circumstances that might prevent them to have, a higher GPA, whether that's having to work and manage to study, or, had other personal situations. So you don't have to have a 4.0, so don't focus, that much or on that, but you do need to show that you have good grade. You need to show that you can handle challenging classes, that you learn the material and you just didn't pass by. So challenge yourself, right? Look at the curriculum or the classes that you need when you're in med school and grad school, and try to take classes that will give you a foundation or a base, right, to do well in those classes. So think about the classes that you can take now during college. And you want to develop good study skills, right? These are going to be like skills that you are going to help you a lot when you're in grad school and med school, and you have a lot of higher over workload than compared to undergrad. So you have a calendar, write all the things that you need to do, like your tests, your projects, your assignments, study hours. Use applications to minimize distractions, to manage your time, take notes, ask for help, right? Don't wait until you're about to flunk a class to start going to the office hours or the tutoring center or asking the TA. They are there for a reason and is to help you. Also, be wise on the professors that you choose. I mean, you might be drawn to go and, attend the class with the easiest professor, and that can make sense. But at the end, you want to make sure that you learn well the material. And for that, it's better to select professors who have a good reputation on teaching, someone who will make you think, who will challenge you, but are also fair and good mentors. So it's important to ask other students, right, to read reviews about how they do teaching. Never take more classes than what you can do well. It's quality versus quantity. Show that you are a well-rounded student. So take elective in non-science classes. Maybe something you enjoy doing, or some things that, class that something you want to learn. Read, read, and read. read actively. This will definitely be a plus to help you prepare not only for the comprehensive aspects of the test, but also reading papers. And you're going to have to read a lot when you're in grad school and in med school. So you want to develop this skill now. Manage your classes, balancing, hardcore science math classes with maybe some other that are more relaxing, taking classes that you need, but do not overextend. You don't need to take, 200,000 credits to demonstrate that you can do it all. So choose wisely. And there's a say, teach it, use it. So the best way to learn material is to teach it, right? So there's a say that if you cannot teach it, you don't know it. So take opportunities. Maybe you want to tutor, and that way you can review the material and it will keep it fresh in your minds. The other aspects are relevant experiences, those related to research. And even though research is important for both, it would have more weight for those who are pursuing a PhD. So you want to develop and sharpen your problem-solving skills, your thinking critically, learning how to communicate science. And you can do this by conducting research during your academic year, right? You can find research assistantships, or completely, some students are in the honors program and you have to complete a senior thesis, applying for fellowships, applying for summer internships. And here are some examples. This is the REU, or the research experiences for undergraduates, and serve summer undergraduate research fellowships. And you can find those online if you do a search. Or you can get a job at as a research assistant or a lab technician. Now, if there's maybe reason why you couldn't do research during your undergrad and you need to fill that gap, then it is okay, considering a gap year or an enhancing year. So you can do a postbac and at NIH, which you do like 1 or 2 years of full-time research, or you can apply for a prep program at a university, which combines research, and also you participate in courses for skills development. Now, there are other relevant experiences, right? Besides research, specifically, this applies if you want to go to med school. You have to have experiences that are clinical related. So you want to have experiences that inform you about the medical profession. So you want to try to get as much as you can, whether that's clinical volunteering, shadowing, or having other jobs. Clinical volunteering might need around 150 hours. So this can be working at a clinic, doing tasks, in shelves, receiving patients, setting up equipment. The important thing is that you get to observe the role of those in leadership position, understanding how the system works, what happens day to day, the daily task. So don't underestimate this simple task. Also, you need shadowing. So this can be passive, so literally being the shadow of a doctor and walking next to them, seeing what they do. But there's also the active, where you discuss the patient's case with the doctor before and after, right? So you learn more about the disease, about their thought process in the diagnosis and the treatments and so forth. Other things that we know students have done is getting being an EMT, an emergency medical technician, serving as medical scribes, doing health-related missions, or serving as translators in hospitals, and in NIH specifically, they done in like clinical trials with patients from all over the world. Also, community service is important, and these are not clinical related. So these can include work in hospice, missions abroad that are more humanitarian. So helping building a community after a hurricane or earthquakes, volunteering at a soup kitchen or a shelter. So it is important. Oh, and other activities like outreach and mentoring, teaching, other jobs that you have had or international experiences. Um, but it is important that you know how many hours you need, right? So that you can start planning ahead by the summer before your senior year, right? If you need to submit your application, you have to have these hours already. So factor that in, so to make sure that you complete them with enough time. Other skills are important that we talk: leadership. And by this, I mean in taking an active role as a member of a group or a team or an organization. Um, Many students just join, as a member, but that doesn't mean you are a leader or you're taking initiative on leading an activity or a group or an event, right? So you want to choose maybe some things that you can take that active role, that you lead others. And you can do this by taking the lead on class projects, taking leadership roles in a student board or government body, fraternity, sorority, and clubs, sports, community service, right? Maybe you organize a huge fundraising or organize a big event. Also job, so work, study, teaching, or something you do outside school. So being involved in the larger community shows that you care, that you are versatile, and that you want to make a difference. And with this said, I don't mean that you need to be the president of every single club organization. So just pick maybe one or two that are very important to you, and try to have an active role on those. So you want to show that you're a well-rounded student and that you have had different experiences. And these matter because if you're serious, it shows that you're serious or you're committed to something. They want to know that you take initiative, that you can lead, that you can work with people with different perspective. So it also helps you to manage your time and multiple responsibility, right? So under time management shows maturity, that you're driven, and also it's a win-win for you, right? It builds your confidence on your capability, on everything that you can accomplish. It expands your network, it sharpens your problem solving skills, um, and you learn to work um, with different people. So do this, but do not overextend. If you get into many things and then your grades start to suffer, then it might be a good idea to step back and kind of reflect on what is more important to you at that moment. So having priorities. Interpretation skills is also important no matter what career you're going to pursue, right? You want to know how to write well. You can volunteer to write blogs in your personal time, a blogs for a club, or something at school, in college, social media, in a school newspaper. You can find an editor to give you feedback, or you can volunteer to be one if you feel confident about your skills, and take writing classes if necessary. There's no shame on that. Also learning to speak well, right? You want to be clear, precise, and coherent, and this will help you prepare for future interviews um, as well. So prepare your elevator speech, that 30, 60-second brief introductions on who you are, what you do, where you want to be, right? Volunteer to present your work, either poster or all presentations and seminars, and practice. If you work in a lab, ask to practice at lab meetings. If you're part of a club or an organization, ask to speak. So take every opportunity that you can to practice these skills, and find groups that provide a friendly venue for practicing and feedback. So for example, in NIH, we have some community groups called, like we have SAGNAS, and we have done some science symposium where fellows come and present their research, right? The postbacks run seminars where you volunteer to do an oral talk. There's Toastmasters, which is a place where you can go and practice your communication. So find ways that you can do that now, because practice will make you better. Then there are also other skills that you can learn as you go through college and life, and it will help you navigate and thrive during challenging situations. I mean, first, being resilient, and here I'm gonna sell our event. So OITE is hosting a series of workshops on resilience during this summer. So please go to our website, and I encourage you to attend. This series, I think, is 5 workshops, and they have group discussions, so you can practice um, having these conversations and skills. So being resilient, right? The ability to adapt and grow through adversity, to navigate difficult challenges, and learning from all your experiences, good and bad. So it's bouncing back from difficult or challenging things that have happened in your life, and kind of turning that into a positive and learning experience. And this is an ongoing process, so it takes time, and it's a skill that you can practice and can be learned. Emotional intelligence, it's involving the ability to monitor your own and others' emotions and feelings, and then you use that information to guide your thoughts and actions, and how you interact with other people. Being a team player, knowing how to work with people with different perspectives from different backgrounds. Time management, we talk about it, right? Dividing your time among several projects. You're going to have a ton of classes and labs and projects and research plus your personal needs. So it's important to learn now how to manage your time. And when you are trying to juggle so many things, right? It is important to manage well our time. And you will need this in grad school and med school. And this will help you also manage your stress and reducing it, because you're not scrambling to do something in the last minute. So find ways to do things that release your stress, whether that's, meditating, doing exercise, cooking, painting, whatever is that helps you relax. Um, so now that we cover some of like the skills and experiences that you need, so I will suggest start making a list. What are the relevant experiences or skills that you already have? Which are the ones that you think you're missing or lacking, or maybe you need to improve or develop, and start working on that. If you don't know what to do or how to find opportunities, sometimes it helps talking to advisors, to mentors, or to your peers. They can kind of give you, others ideas that you haven't think about, or help you brainstorm so that you can get these experiences. Make a list. If you do something in your freshman, your sophomore year, by the time you have to write later, you might forget about it. So keep a journal with all your activities, with all the details about what you did, how many hours, your roles, supervisor names, and especially what did you learn. And this especially for med school, where you have to write a list of 15 activities that covers all the experiences that we talk about. So if you do that now, it might be easier for you to kind of dig on those experiences when you're about to write that. Okay, so then letters of recommendations. I will say that these are one of the most important aspects of an application, because this gives a mission committee a unique perspective on who you are, right? From their experience with you. So it gives another point of view. So you want to make sure that the letters of recommendation speak about your skills and your traits that are going to make you successful. And I have to say that a good letter of recommendation can take you far. A bad letter of recommendation can hurt your chances. So be wise on who you ask. And what are some of the things you want them to talk? You want them to give examples, how you are a problem solver, critical thinking, like how resilient, how committed, motivated, how do you manage in groups? How do you lead? So you want them to use examples. How do you deal with challenging situations? So ask someone who knows you well, And for med school or grad school, it's important to ask for STEM professors, research mentors, advisors. For med school, you can also have doctors. You have shadow a committee letter, which is this is something that some schools, their pre-med advising office can write if you have one, or someone you volunteer for. Do not ask family members, friends, coaches, or pastor. That's like a big no-no. Request them in advance. Give them time to prepare and give them all the information that you can. An updated CV, your personal or research statement, um, all the details, what is the deadline, how and when to submit it. And for medical school, for example, there's a guideline for letter writers. So you want to print that or send them the link so that they see what are the pointers that the schools are asking to talk about you, right? And you can just give them, what do you want them to highlight about you that will help you get into that school. And follow up. It is important to follow up because sometimes we get busy and we might forget. So it doesn't mean that they don't want to write a letter. So things that you can do now to get a strong letter of recommendation um, is, show up, sit in the front row if you are, thinking of asking someone, a professor, right? Ask questions, be visible, go to the office hours, have a foster a relationship with them, and know who to ask, right? So you should be able to say to the professor or the mentor or the advisor, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? If they feel like they will not be able to do so because they don't have that much information, they will tell you, or at least you hope they will tell you, right? So think really who will be a good person to ask, and ask someone who has your best um, interest. And last but not least is taking care of yourself, right? Generally, we're always focused on doing well in our classes and trying to get everything done, and we forget about ourselves and to nurture our whole self. So you want to make sure that you take care of your body, your mind, heart, and spirit, right? All aspects of your life. And if you attended the resilient talks from Dr. Sharon Milgram, there's one thing that she said, that to do well, you have to be to do well, we have to be well. So you are as important as all of these aspects that you need to complete for medical school or grad school. So make sure you start developing these habits now, right? That they're going to stay with you, because developing a habit takes a lot of time, right? So always make sure that you exercising, whatever that means for you. Eat well, stay connected with family and friends, have a support system, learn new hobbies, or maybe keep your hobbies. Set aside time for that. You can practice meditation, journaling, meet new people, take advantage of classes that you're attending, events, clubs, organizations. I mean, ask your friends to introduce you to some of their friends. Find communities with whom you can read it. So maybe many colleges and schools have groups that tailor to different demographics. So you can find one that you can relate to, that you can feel comfortable, that it kind of takes you home. Take advantage of fitness facilities or classes, whether they have discounts or maybe they're free. And now with this social distancing, right, there's a lot of classes online that you can find in YouTube to exercise that can cater your needs, and use resources available at your institutions. I think that's one of the most important things. There's no shame in asking for support or help and using resources to be well. Your mental health is really important, and it matters more than anything else. Um, in the other hand, also your behavior matters, right? And you never know who's watching. And in these times, I mean, I didn't have to worry about technology when I was doing my PhD or high school, right? But now with social media and how it has exploded and everything can be recorded and made public, you want to be mindful of your role in social media, of what you post in social media, of what your friends post in social media, right? Um, you also want to make sure that you don't commit institutional action. So use of alcohol, DUIs, cheating, if you get caught cheating on an exam or speeding tickets, things that can go on your record and can really harm your chances of getting into a school, no matter how great your credentials are. So they can check on that, and you never know. So it's better to just keep it professional and safe. And I think one of the other things that really is important or key for success is having good mentors. All successful professionals agree that mentoring relationships are key to have a happy and productive career in life. Mentors are the ones that pass their skills, their knowledge, their wisdom, right? They have your best interest. They want to help you grow, to help you develop a career by giving you feedback, encouraging you, giving you guidance and support, right? And you don't have to have one mentor. In fact, it is more advisable to have different mentors because you can have one mentor that is really good to help you in your research, right? So it's a scientific mentor. But then for other aspects of your life, whether that's academically or career-wise, they might not be that good. So you can find someone else that have that expertise or that can mentor you in that aspect. So you can have several mentors, and that is completely okay. Okay, so I am going to see if there are, I'll take some of the questions now. So, okay, someone asked about not being able to participate in research or volunteering in COVID. And actually, I think my colleague, Dr. Sean, answered, but I have some resources for that at the end. We're not going to cover MD, PhD. There might be a video cast, and you can also, I'll give the details, but there's a grad school. We're hosting a grad school and professional fair. And there's going to be schools that you can ask all the questions about MD, PhDs. Also, if you go to the choosing and applying for medical school, maybe, I'm not sure if the pre-med advisor is going to touch on that, but you might want to hear as well. I'm sorry, I guess some of you were not able to listen to me that much. This is going to be recorded, so I hope you can go back and listen to it. Let's see. What are the questions that haven't been answered? A lot of questions about COVID-19. So there are some questions here about becoming a scribe right now or EMT training. I will say one of the, you can search online how to get the certificates, ask your pre-med or pre-health advising office. Also the AAMC website, they have tons of resources on how to get those experiences. So Yes, you need both clinical, volunteering, and shadowing, as they're very different. Um, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, there's one here. If we want to ask a letter of recommendation from a STEM professor, will having one class with them be enough to ask for a letter? I mean, you don't need to take several classes with a professor. What you want to make sure is that you have a relationship with them, right? That they know about your goals, that they know your interests, that you go to the office hour, that you show interest in the class. And also, it's not necessarily that you have to take a class with that professor. Sometimes they are advisors of a group or advisors of a club. And you can also develop that relationship with them. So what you don't want is to ask a professor that's gonna write, well, this student got an A and sits in the front of the classroom, right? That doesn't make you unique. That doesn't say a lot about you. But what happened if maybe you didn't do well in a test? What do you do? And that they can talk about that. How well do you handle like questions? That you were always asking inquisitive questions, that you were always participating, that you attended the hours. So it kind of like develop organically relationships like that. So one class could be enough as long as they know a little bit more about you than just being a student in the class. Okay, there's one question that I have. Do you have any tips for getting into research? It always seems like people find positions easily, but there's struggle trying to find. I have a link for a lot of research opportunities, and I'll go that at the end. You can also talk to advisors, um, go to your talk to professors. Sometimes they're doing research. If it's something that interests you, talk to your friends who are doing research. If they have like a career center, they can help you on that. And a lot is online. So it's just like asking your network. And you can also email me, but I'll give you a list of a lot of resources that you have. The AAMC also has a link with a lot of opportunities to do research on the summer. During the academic year can be a little bit challenging because they might not be announced right on your school's webpage, but some of them might have it. So it might be more just asking their professors or going to your schools, to your college website and looking for like research, who does the research, and contacting them, or asking for a short, brief, interview to see if you're a good fit, if there are opportunities for you to do a few hours a week. Okay, I'm gonna continue and then I'll take a couple of more questions at the end. So we talk about a lot of the experiences that you need and what are the components of to make you a successful applicant. So now what do you do with all this information? You want to make a plan and doing it ahead of time. You want to meet with an advisor, right? Whether in your career center, pre-health advisor, pre-med office, or a health-related professions. And thinking about a school that is good fit for you. And I said I wasn't going to cover this, so there's those other 2 workshops that you can attend to. But just things in general that you want to think about is the cost to attend those, especially medical school. PhD programs are funded in the biomedical sciences, so you don't have to worry about the tuition, but you might want to think about paying for your bills and rent and all that if you are not from that, if it's out of state. So, and depending on your situation, right, which is your financial situation, which is different from everyone, you want to think about location, the curriculum, resources. The mentorship is really important, and the support system. I think especially now, one of the good things that you can ask now is how did they supported the student during COVID-19, and that will tell you a lot about how much that school care about the students. Admission and acceptance rates, especially for medical school, you can have those tables, and I'll have the resource in a little bit. Um, Opportunities to grow professionally and academically, that the school fits your interests, whether that's research or medicine related, and has what you want to do. And if diversity is important for you, that they appreciate and value diversity. Take the time to research the school. What are the things that offer? Do you see yourself there? Talk to like faculty, students about their experiences, and start developing a timeline to prepare and submit your application. So you want to make sure you understand the process, you understand what are the requirements, what are the deadlines, also preparing for the admission test. So find out what are the school test requirements. So for grad school, the many schools are not requiring GREs because there's a research that indicates that scoring the GRE is not correlated to success of the students, right? So you want to make sure that if you have to take it or not. Some might still require it. Some might say optional. Some might say not needed. So if you have any doubt, always contact the program director. For med school, use the MSAR is the medical school admission requirements, and it has all the requirements for the schools. Develop a timeline to study and be realistic, and schedule your test with enough time to send the scores, but also to repeat if you need to, and study and practice. So overall, you want to maximize your college experiences, right? So in summary, learning about yourself. What are your values? What are the things that matter to you? What are the skills? What are the things that you are good at or that you still need to improve? What are your interests that you want to further keep exploring? And finding opportunities to grow and to learn more about them. Get meaningful experiences. Quality. Sometimes it's better, to spend a little more time focusing on one thing than trying to do 10 things and you really don't learn or experience what it is being in the field. Ask for help and support. Make connections. Build your network. If you are a freshman, sophomore, start thinking about how to build your network. Who can be your mentors? Who can you talk to? Because you will need those letters, and you also will need that support. Learn new skills. Maybe you want to learn about data science. That's big now, right? In research or computer software, or you want to take a class of something that you're going to take in medical school, or depending on what field you want to go into grad school, or a technique. And also now with all the online learning, make sure that you learn all these online platforms, right? Because we don't know, but it might be useful to know how to navigate online learning. Develop your skills. So again, finding opportunities and experiences, developing habits for self-care, but also don't forget about having fun. Use your campus resources. That's why they are there for, right? So use your career center, student affairs, talk to program directors, mentors. Use your students' health services or counseling center if you need it. Take advantage of the wellness resources, support groups and peer mentoring groups. So it's a lot of information, and you want to reflect on the things that you have and the things that you want to do. So I hope you can make, a list of what are 2 or 3 things that I can do now, areas that you want to improve, experiences that you want to have. Um, and I will say, keep this list with you. Put it in a visible place where you can start checking off your list, the things that you have accomplished, and keep adding as you move forward to reach your goal. And one of the um, realistic ways to do this is SMART goals, right? You want to make sure that you can accomplish your goal. Because if not, you're going to get frustrated. So using goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So for example, if you want to plan for the MCAT, right? So when do you want to submit the scores? When do you want to take the test? And then, okay, so now you need to study 2 months before. So then saying something like, you want to take the test in March, so you will study from January to March, and you will devote 3 hours a day during the week, and then you'll do X amount of hours in the weekend for practice tests. So something that is small, but that you can attain in a specific time and that you will do it. And I saw a lot of questions on what can you do now when everything is shut down. So here are some things that you could do to gain experiences. They're not perfect, right? And we hope that you can go back to, we can go back to a normal where you can actually, go and do research in a lab. But in the meantime, you can read books related to science, to research, medicine, other health, career related topics. Listen to podcasts. Um, network. Many people are in their homes, right? So search for people you want to talk to, for those maybe who are working on the field that you want to do, who are doing the job that you will see yourself doing, or maybe you're interested in doing. Conduct informational interviews. These are just interviews to learn about what they're doing, how they get there, the skills that they need, where to get the experiences for that. Talk to other students, use LinkedIn, the university databases, the NIH alumni database. You can also access that. Search the web for schools or programs and start making a list of places you want to go. Find free online learning opportunities. So they are schools like Yale and Harvard that are offering some free courses. So you can just do a search on that. Volunteer virtually. So for medical school, right? So the volunteering got shut down, but there are a lot of things that you can still do. So here are a couple of websites that you can search and find something that you might want to do, and attend fairs and conferences. The AAMC hold a virtual fair in May, but you might be able to, like, as you start thinking about these, make a note to attend next year, and to keep checking on their website how they're going to do that, and they're free. Also, NIH, our office is hosting the virtual graduate and professional school fair from August 4th to the 7th. So August 4th is going to be live sessions on preparing and getting to medical school, grad school, and other topics related to that. And then there's going to be pre-recorded sessions on different careers like genetic counseling, clinical psychology, public health. So learning a little bit about that. And the awesome thing about it is that there's going to be a virtual online session with schools. Generally, they come to NIH and they recruit students there, but this time it's open to everyone. And just check our website for this, and more information is going to be posted. So we're going to have a lot of schools that are going to have informational sessions on their programs, and that's the best way for you to start getting ready and know what those schools or programs specifically are looking for. And there are a lot of resources that I'm giving you. So this is the Association of American Medical colleges that have a lot of information on med school. So from getting experiences, getting organized, applying, what to do. So I really, really encourage you to go through the website and read about it. Also, they talk about other careers in medical research. So they talk here about MD, PhD. They have a guide on PhD and how to prepare for that during college. There's the post-bac pre-medical program. So these are programs in, if you need to enhance your GPA for whatever reason, or, prep for the MCAT. So these are more kind of academically based, so you can find information on that. For clinical experiences or shadowing, checking out university, or finding opportunities in the hospitals. They sometimes post that they're looking for volunteers. Research for the students who ask, like I said, asking your professors, academic advisor, and then searching. So these are some of the sites that you can check. Also, Pathways to Sign has a lot of access to opportunities for undergrads, for research, scholarships, fellowships. The AMC, as I said, also has a link on summer programs. So they has a list of different universities. We have the resources on our website. So you can click on the link, and you have some of them have been videocast, so you can watch. They're a little bit old, but you can still access it. And this is not an easy path, right? But when you plan, when you ask for advice and support, and when you take care of yourself, you're gonna feel much better prepared, and you will set yourself for success. So remember, you're here, you're in college to grow, to learn, and to develop the skills that you need. And just on my email, lugoescobarn@mail.nih.gov. I know we're not gonna be able to answer a lot of your questions, but please feel free to email me. And with that, I know my colleague has been able to answer a few of the questions. So I'm gonna maybe a few more minutes. So there's one question: if you're not in college, what are some things you can do to prepare? So I guess that will depend what stage you are. I mean, if you want to go to grad school and medical school, so for example, if you are not in college anymore, so you can pursue a post-bac, and depends if you want to for medical school. It depends how long you have graduated from college. I would say just think about what schools are you interested on going, and then contacting them and seeing what are the requirements, and see what are the things that you have. Maybe you have taken some classes, but maybe you're missing some classes. So there's no way around that. You're gonna have to maybe, if you still need more classes, to sign up to fulfill those requirements. If it's clinical volunteering and all that, you can do. You don't need to be in college to do that. You can find a lot of opportunities on your community, on hospitals, on clinics, different organizations. So I will say just looking more at the requirements of the things that you do. And again, the AAMC that has a lot of websites. If you want to know more in detail, also attending the workshop on medical school. So they will cover very specific in details what things do you need. So I would say asking, just emailing. They are the best people that they can tell you their admissions, contacting someone at the medical school, what things you can do, going to the fair, attend the graduate school fair. So that way you can also hear from program directors what you can do to prepare for that. I already said about the research. And let me see. How does the application process for MD, PhD, dual degree programs differ from that solely of MD or PhD? Well, first, the MD, PhD, it's a very lengthy, right, training. So you're applying for programs where you do a few years, you do both at the same time. For that program, you need to show that you have an interest in research, right? So you have to have research experience, and you have to be able to say why do you need that research experience, right? How do you want to match maybe your research interest in the clinical setting and applying it to what the medicine that you want to pursue. So you have to also write a research statement on that, an MD PhD statement, and then there's what we call secondary applications, which depends on the university, and it's just like some essays that you have to write specifically of that school. And I will say for this, attend the workshop on medical school, where they might touch on that. There are a lot of questions, and I know we're not going to be able to answer them. If
Natasha,
yes,
I think you can pick one or two more questions and we can wrap up the session. And if there is so many questions we need to address, maybe we will make as a Q&A and we'll send out by email.
Okay. What is your best advice of a high school student going to their senior year that wants to pursue a medical career? I mean, I think as of now, it's if you're a high school student going into your senior year, just doing well in your classes, and then making sure you have you start developing some skills. I have to say that for medical school, anything that you did in high school doesn't count. So I think as of now, just focus on doing well in college, and once you get to college, then go and see, meet with a pre-med advisor and see what you need to do at that time. Things can change from here to when you start medical school, but there are skills that you can work on, like leadership, communication skills that will serve you well, and will get you into the right path and developing good study habit skills, and so forth. Does the NIH have postbac research concentrated in public health? Yes, we do. There's some labs that focus on public health. And I'm going to answer clinical experience only intended for those applying for med school or for those applying to PhD programs like psychology. So clinical experience is applicable to med school. And if you're applying to a PhD in clinical psychology, then you need experience in psychology. Otherwise, it's not necessarily needed unless you want to do research on psychology as a PhD. And yeah, there's a lot of many other questions, so we're running out of time. But as Dr. Sean said, we'll try to answer some questions and maybe somehow create a Q&A and document with the answers. You have also my email. You have the website for all the resources that we have. So I just want to thank you for joining and listening, and I hope the information is really useful to prepare you for that next step. So have a very good evening, and we'll hope to see you virtually soon. Okay, bye.